Good morning, everybody. Thank you all for being here. My name is John Fay. I'm a principal planner of special projects at Old Colony Planning Council. I'm working a little bit with Paul here, who's heading up this Tech Hub initiative. So it was a planning grant that we got from Mass Tech Collaborative, which is an economic development agency of the state. So we got $100,000 to develop a plan for how to build a better pipeline for students and adult learners to actually enter into advanced manufacturing jobs. It sounds like someone's trying to hop on this BBAI. No, okay, just a transcriber.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. I'll pause and look at the.
Oh, see some people are on here. Just start again because I see there's a group of people.
All right.
So I thought I saw Mary. But
Okay. Well, good morning again, anyway. My name is John Fay, again, working with Old Colony Planning Council. Just want to get this onto the record. So we were awarded a $100,000 planning grant from Mass Tech Collaborative, which is an economic development agency of the state, in order to help build a pipeline for students, both adult and younger learners alike, to actually enter into advanced manufacturing jobs, which we're trying to reshore, bring new jobs back. And so since it's been a while since we've had a really developed manufacturing industry, especially one that is basically the way I like to see it as manufacturing 2.0. It's not your grandfather's manufacturing industry. But since we have had a bit of a lapse in that, we kind of have to start from square one again here. So now what we're doing with this planning grant is we're getting feedback, we're getting pain points from the industry players, we're getting perceptions from students as to how the industry could work for them. Are they interested in becoming, a manufacturer, whatnot? And then we're going to incorporate all that into a strategy, which we can then apply for another grant for to actually implement all the strategies that we develop through this planning grant. So yeah, the overall goal is to help everybody run in the gamut from adult learners to children. Honestly, it would be nice to have some middle schoolers here, but their input be of less worth here.
You're not allowed to employ them.
But 18 years.
Labor laws can't do it.
But that's the overall goal, is that, we want to catch kids young and get them interested in the industry. Want to tell them, that it's not what you may perceive it to have been. It's not the dirty manufacturing that used to be. It's a lot of technological advances that have been made in this advanced manufacturing industry that, your tool is now the computer. I don't mean to speak out of turn for the industry professionals here, but, whereas before your hands were the tools or your hands were the ones manipulating the tools, now the computer is your tool through which you actually do your work. So we're really here to have a conversation to kind of get feedback, again, pain points, how you guys perceive the industry, and that will all go to inform our planning grant. Well, what is the result of this planning grant, which then we can apply for an implementation grant and hopefully get some of that in place and get some kids and adults in the industry. So yeah.
So
thank you for being here.
Yeah, so why don't we first, because we have a large group and we have just a broad group of people here, from students to manufacturers to educators, workforce development. Can we just go around the room real quick? Just say your name and who you're affiliated with. So Oliver, can we start with you?
All right. My name is Oliver. I'm a student at Mass Tech Community College. It's very interesting. I have a history in environmental health and safety, so I've been on the back end of a lot of manufacturing jobs, just looking out, seeing what people are doing air quality testing and stuff like that. And now I'm a student trying to do the mechanical portion of it. And
good morning, everyone. Jason Hunter, the Executive Director of Mass High Greater Brockton Workforce Group.
I'm John Lasinskas. I'm a professor at Massasoit Community College in the engineering department. I also have my own electro-optics company. I'm sort of a one-man shop that makes some laser control equipment. And a really interesting point, I actually got my start right here down the road in manufacturing at Chrome Height.
Hi, I'm Katie Ruggieri. I'm the STEM dean at Massasoit, and I rely on these guys because I'm a biologist by trade. So.
Again, John Fay, Principal Planner Special Projects at Old Colony Planning Council.
Like it's Massey, Accurance. Welcome.
Rick Jordan, town planner for the town of Avon, working on planning and zoning and some economic development for the town.
Hi, my name's Emmanuel Nelson, and I'm a student at Massasoit Community College.
I'm Niels. I'm studying chemical engineering at Massasoit Community College.
I'm Donalda Barella. I'm a student at Massasoit Community College, also affiliated with Mass Hire. I'm a part of a Young Adults Initiative Committee where we try to offer job opportunities to young adults and see how we can also find a way to connect.
I'm Lori Jodwin. I'm the superintendent of schools here in Avon.
I'm Mark Miller with Artisan Industries. We manufacture precision separation equipment. Really cool stuff.
I'm Aiden Bryce, and I'm a student of Brockton High School, and I'm affiliated with NASA.
You know, I'm Paul Giuseppe with Colony Planning Council, so we're gonna just turn it over to John to ask the first question.
Absolutely. All right, sorry, I'm just taking some notes here. So just leading off, we're just gonna, soft touch here, just to get everyone talking, feeling comfortable. So wanted to start out with, tell us about your own story. What brought you into manufacturing, if you are in manufacturing, or into work that supports it, if that's what your charge is, or what brings you here to this table and is interested by manufacturing. So whatever your connection may be, let's know a little bit about yourself. And was there a moment, a person, or an experience that brought you to this field and made you want to be a part of it? So yeah.
Well, being a second generation family business owner, I guess I was born into it. So it was something that I was always interested in. I went to engineering school, got my mechanical engineering degree at UNH. Followed that up shortly after Babson College for my MBA. And I've been full-time here since '85, but I started when I was 12, sweeping floors and packing parts and running machines. And I wanted to drive the van to the parts, but that was one job I probably did. Not creating value and learning experience. He never let me do that. But
Right, you get to do that now?
yeah, no, I don't do that now. I wish I could spend more time on the floor and hanging out with all the machinists and the cool technology that we have. But we make high-end mechanical components, tight tolerance work down to the millions of an inch. Just a quick factoid, 80% of the world's flu vaccine flows from parts that we make here. And if we have time at the end, we can take a quick tour to show you a little bit about what we do.
That'd be awesome. Thank you. Great.
Well, my tie to manufacturing is a little limited in the sense that as town planner, we're interested in supporting economic development in the town. The commercial and industrial businesses are pretty important to the town's tax base. So I don't know, I got involved in government a long time ago out of interest in contributing to the community. And trying to make some tangible improvements here in the community. Let's see. So my work now as town planner includes a small amount of time on economic development, and we're working to design a sewer system for the park you're in now. And we're hoping that will spur, if it does get built, it would spur more development in the Avon Industrial Park. Including either new businesses and or expansion of existing businesses. And currently the park is constrained by septic systems. We don't have any sewer here. So that that sets a limit on growth here in the park.
Well, for me, I don't really have too much knowledge on like manufacturing, but the thing that makes me interested in like engineering in general is just like my love of like building things and putting things together, because like as a kid I would like enjoy like there were these like blocks that I used to like play with. I would like put them together and like I would like make different stuff, and like I just have like enjoyment like doing those things. me that made me like, because right now I'm a transfer student for mech engineering. And I'm studying like, um, calculus and different things so that I can like transfer to a 4-year college later. Yeah.
All right, I've been interested in chemistry for a long time. My father's a middle school science teacher, my mom's a doctor. But what specifically brought me towards chemical engineering and specifically materials science is I have a family friend who is a physicist who worked with a company up in Gloucester miniaturizing computer chips, and I always found the concept of managing to get a thinking rock, but also to make it so small you can barely see it. It's incredible that we've been able to accomplish that, and I'd love to be a part of innovating further in that field.
Great answer.
Um, I personally don't have as strong ties to manufacturing, but one thing that interested me in coming into today was given the fact that although I might not have, I know that other young adults tend to like to expand and try to figure out what their niche is and what their passion is. And I like to be able to offer that opportunity to young adults that are interested into doing so. So yes, that's my meaning.
So I have even less of a experience in manufacturing. I've been 25 years in education. I've been here in Avon for the last 3 years. This is my second year as superintendent. And, I think I got into education because I wanted to be able, I think that's what most teachers would say is shape the future. I continue to want to do that. And, I'm always looking at new opportunities for our students in ways that, can kind of open their eyes. I think for a lot of the students at any high school, but, my basis, Avon Middle High School, is that they don't really have a good idea on what's out there. That they don't have a good understanding, it's beyond being a teacher, being a nurse, being a lawyer, being a doctor, those, and yeah, and I think that the more we can show students what opportunities there are out there, the better off they are in making really good decisions for themselves and their futures, so.
My introduction to manufacturing was actually in my junior high school shop classes. Loved doing the metalworking, loved doing the woodworking, loved the smell of cutting fluids and cutting steel. It was just an amazing experience to me. I'm a chemical engineer. I spent most of my career, we had a lot of chemical and mechanical engineers at Artisan. I spent most of my career making bio-based replacements for petroleum, because really what I wanted to do was save the world, right? There's too much petroleum being used and you can make environmentally friendly versions of that. I came into manufacturing as kind of a fluke. I got an email from a interim executive recruiting company, and Artisan was looking to bring in an interim executive to keep the company running. I said, this sounds like something I could do for some period of time. Came here and fell in love with the company. I love the people. I love the machines. We're a blend of manual equipment. I mean, we're not modern like Mike's company is. We're a mixture of really old school technologies. We're a mixture of CNC equipment, and we're a mixture of hybrid equipment. We do a lot of engineering and design for our manufacturing. So we have chemical, mechanical, manufacturing engineers. We're about 50% of the design, 50% of the manufacturing. What I like about this is that our customer base is enormous, like Mike's company, like AccuRounds. We make cool stuff, but what's really cool about it is how people use it and how we're able to save lives. One of our customers makes a site-specific chemotherapy. One of our customers is pulling toxins out of vegetable oils and groundwaters and things like that. We did a really cool project with the government, pulling uranium salts out of groundwater, which allowed them to be put back into the nuclear power plant and able to take the groundwater and dump it back into the river. So I loved Artisan. I love the work we do. What's also cool is you can see the design from the very, very beginning to the engineering mass balances, to the manufacturing engineering or mechanical engineering, and then walk out to the shop and see all that theory put into practice. And then as it's manufactured from little bits and pieces of steel to a giant piece of equipment that's ready to rock and roll and go out the door. That's where I came in.
Good morning.
Sure.
I think my whole interest in engineering and that type of space kind of stems from when I was a kid, I would take apart some of the toys that I was given. Like I had electrical toys and I would like take apart, get to the motherboard, get to the wires, and I would take it apart and try to remake them and see how the inner workings and outer workings of these like machines, how you could like turn just about a bunch of wires and like some boards, like a motherboard, into something that can like move and make noises and creates like an electrical, I don't know, kind of reaction. I'm not really tied to manufacturing, but I just would like to learn more about the space because of my interest in learning how things work. And that's pretty much my passion.
I think it's really funny how all the students have a history of breaking things and trying to fix it. I think I share the same story, you know. I grew up in the Caribbean, and I would get gifts from my family members, and instead of being a regular kid and playing with it, I would find a screwdriver and take apart the laptop that is sent over to try to figure out why it's doing what it's doing. My mom hated it. But around high school, I realized I had a real penchant for like problem solving, and I didn't know how to apply that. I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I ended up working at one of my buddy's firms, a close family friend of mine, told me, hey, you have a good history with like figuring out how things work. We want to see you what you could do at our engineering consulting firm. And I started working for them over in Newton. And I was a industrial hygienist over there, which was very interesting because I see the back end of what manufacturing looked like. Our company get hired all over the US to like do lead testing or just whatever kind of testing that was necessary for the client. I've done groundwater, I've done air, I've done nuclear metals over in Concord. And nobody likes a hygienist on site. Nobody wants a stop work order or you know, to be told that they're doing something wrong and that they should stop because you know things are dangerous. And my passion and love for problem solving and fixing things never faded. I would often ask the guys on the floor like what they're doing, how does it work, like what's the process, and I realized that my passion and penchant is more towards that, like being in the middle of an issue, trying to figure out how we can streamline the process and how we can make things way more efficient. And I realized I needed to make a switch career-wise, and I decided to go back to school to implement that.
Put the laptop back together?
Never, never,
Did any of the toys actually get fixed?
never.
Being a part of the workforce, but obviously workforce development is our biggest charge. And about 15 years ago, we had a grant for manufacturing and guys like Mike and others opened their doors, and it was just being able to see how much not only tech, but just work goes on a daily basis and how each manufacturer from company to company is different. But they're all trying their best to be efficient, run efficiently. And just watching some of the machines go and how guys are able to stop, fix it, go right back into production, it just really kind of blew me away. I'm thinking of those terms, so. I got it.
Okay, so I will not bore you with my toy story. Katie's heard it. But anyway, I've been essentially involved in manufacturing my whole life. My mom ran a pizza kitchen. I was a pizza cook at 13, in spite of the fact that you can't. If she's good. I started my career down at Crown Height. I was a test technician testing, essentially test equipment. I got a really wonderful opportunity. I spent 10 years at a very small company, started with 12 or 13 people, making science research equipment, doing a lot of SBIR government research. And after about 10 years, we were up to about 70 people. I was operations manager, running a liquid crystal cell line. We're making our own liquid crystal cells. I then, as the company sort of went a different direction, I left, took a product line with the company. I've been doing that for the last 25 years. And about 15 years ago, I decided that I needed to do something else because the phone stopped ringing. Everything turned to electronic communication. So I never actually was talking to people. So I looked into teach. I had two choices: go find a job somewhere else, give this up, or keep doing this and start teaching. So I started teaching. And at this point, I've been running the company the same alongside teaching. I'm more part-time with the company now and full-time with teaching.
I'm not an engineer, but I actually came from Bristol Community College and we were part of the Mass Bridge Grant that many of you are also a part of. I worked closely with Megan and Bella Bowen and Mary Cass there. And so I got heavy into advanced manufacturing when I was there. And then when I came to Massasoit, I started working with John and Jack Antoine Jean. And I'll be honest, also, I would be remiss if I didn't say Diane Foran and Paula Martell. We kind of make the circuit of, or Ferrera, I'm mixing up the two Dianes, I'm sorry, I always do that. But we would go to Brockton High. I'm not sure if we met with any of you all, and then Principal McCaskill, but we got the conversations going about starting a pipeline earlier. And even though I'm a biology person by nature, I feel like I kind of share the same inquiry-based passion that you would take apart computers and such. I was petrified to do that. I think in part because of my dad. I was the kid that would get sick from like eating flowers outside because I want to do some research. I did that kind of weird stuff. And so but one thing I noted was as I moved up and got my graduate degree, you moved farther and farther away from the lab. And I feel like for a lot of our students, and I can't speak for all of you, but I think your initial desire is to get your hands dirty and like actually take part in the day-to-day operations. And you can speak most to this, John, but I think we kind of ignore that step a lot of the time and we just say, oh, you want to be an engineer. Like you said, you like to take things apart, figure out how they work. And we're like, yeah, skip all that and just go right to the theoretical. And I think a lot of our students could benefit from working on the shop floor and then kind of gaining their sea legs from that. So I'm just excited to see these conversations go.
Absolutely, and I apologize. No, oh, yeah, sorry, I forgot that you came in.
Yeah, so sorry for coming in, guys. So my name is Donnie Cesar. I'm part of Mass Hire. I am a teacher as well. I've never dived into manufacturing at all. So I actually teach coding and robotics. So we do a lot of programming, things like Scratch or Java or any type of CTSS program that you do. I teach in Brockton as well. I actually never got this in manufacturing. The type of electrical I've done is strictly home security. And yeah, I used to set up some cameras at home with ADT. But as for manufacturing, I'm just here to hear all the discussions and just connect with new people.
Absolutely, thank you. And so I apologize, I realized after we started, I was asking all of you to give me information without actually having shared some of my own. So I'll very briefly give my own. Engineering, I heard that come up a lot. I'm not that kind of engineer, but I was in the Army for 8 years as a combat engineer. And it has kind of informed my circuitous path here to planning. They're actually weirdly analogous. You wouldn't immediately think so, but a lot of the job in the Army was mobility and counter mobility. I work mainly as a transportation engineer or a transportation planner right now. And it really informed my path here to planning and a lot of the same skills that I developed as a combat engineer, just being able to take a problem, break it down, analyze it, and then move forward with the solution are the same skills that are here, that are applicable here. And I just wanted to kind of make that connection that though you may not immediately be connected to the industry now, you may still get something from this. You may still get something from these conversations. And I hope that that can go to inform future in your life. Anyway.
Yeah, and a little bit about myself, because it's gonna lead into the question that I'm gonna first direct to the students, but. So my parents, my father was a general manager of plastics manufacturing. I had several uncles that were in manufacturing, both grandfathers and a grandmother who were in manufacturing. There was no way my parents were going to allow my brother and I to go into manufacturing from back then. Because as John said earlier, again, because all of the family that was involved with it, it was tough work, and they're you know, I like to say, before I was born, I was going to college, and you know, you're going to work in an office, and I'm only bringing that up not to diminish it at all, because it leads to this question of, again, this is going to be first for the students, and then we can open it up, but you know, there's a lot of misperceptions out there about this field. What are you hearing as a student about manufacturing, and what would you like your fellow students to know? Who wants to start with that one?
Well,
Yeah.
it's a bit of a tough one, but most of the time when I specifically hear about chemical related industries, it's when something's gone wrong, like a Monsanto buyer with their Roundup products. And it makes me concerned, and I imagine others as well, that there's ethics problems in the industry. And what I want people to know is it's a problem as long as ethical people stand by and allow it to be one. I feel that the best way to prevent such things from happening in the future is to get into that field and to conduct oneself properly, to keep in mind the safety of everyone who could potentially be harmed by your product, and yeah, just to do what you can to be diligent in your work and study well so that you can do so.
Nobody wants a hygienist until they need them.
Yeah. I think typically a lot of people think that manufacturing floors are very dirty and cluttered and loud. Loud is true. Loud is usually true. But as far as dirty, unsafe, and all those like negative connotations, I find the opposite. I find most of the time that I'm on a manufacturing floor, they're very clean, very precise. Everything has a spot, everything has a location, and people don't understand. And I don't think students understand just how regulated these locations are. You know, you have Mass DEP on you, you have a bunch of governing agencies that you have to report to, which, you know, at times can be very, very redundant. But for the most part, if things are going well, you know, you have a good health and safety officer, the floor is probably one of the safest places in the building. I don't think students really understand what the manufacturing process holds. I don't think they know what start to finish looks like. I don't think they know what a day in the life of a manufacturer, a machinist, or anybody like that looks like. I think most of the schooling is, like Katie said, very theoretical. It's a bunch of what ifs and maybes, and you never get to see what actually happens, and that creates a disconnect for most students when it comes to you know, wanting to pursue this field or being confident that they can achieve something like this.
We've done that perception of 3Ds to the 3Ss. People still think of it, unfortunately, as dark, dirty, dangerous, when in fact it's safe, smart, and sustainable.
Who else? What other students first? Who else? Think about the perceptions, and what would you like people to know about the field you're going to be going into?
I think, as well as I'm saying, many people think that like manufacturing is something that's dirty and you have to get your hands very grimy to get into the work. And they think that companies can think of ways to like cut corners to make things cheaper so that it benefits them more. But I don't believe that. Sometimes some companies do that, but I don't believe that that's the main way that manufacturing works. And many children believe that, like, or not children like me, kids my age, we aren't told many things about these the inner workings of manufacturing and what it's actually like to be a manufacturer. We're kind of just told the outside story, cutting corners. This is what these companies do. They don't want to spend enough money to actually make sure that the people consuming their product are safe. They just want to get the product out and be greedy and money hungry. But that's not really the reality. And what I want kids to know is that to really experience it, you would have to go and find out the inner workings, and it may be more interesting than you would think from the outside looking in. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and to add to that point, I believe that one of the reasons that that perception of cost cutting and ethical issues is so pervasive is you've never seen a news article that says everything fine at manufacturing. You only hear about things when they go wrong. So when you do the job right, no one knows you did it at all.
And for me, when I was in high school, I took a metalworks and a woodshop class, and most students, like, they see it as like dirty because like there's lots of oil, you're walking with lots of oil, lots of smoke, lighting, like when you're welding stuff, and they just see it as like labor intensive. But like the thing about manufacturing is that like when you like, because you're able to like make your own projects, there's like this feeling when you make something and like when you look at like the finished product and you see it, there's like this satisfying feeling that you get knowing you you like put the time and effort into like making it, and now you see the finished product, product. And I feel like the thing that most students are like scared about when it comes to manufacturing is like the accidents, because when I was in high school, there was a couple accidents that some students had, but like at the start, they were like, because the professor like he gave us like cautions like what to watch out for, what to not do. And I feel like many accidents can be avoided, like as long as like most people like just take like the necessary precautions towards them.
I would also like to piggyback off of Oliver. Um, when I first heard manufacturing in high school, I had the same negative connotations within it. Dirty, grimy is not something that I would necessarily would want to, pursue. But based off of what I'm hearing now is that actually it's something that I would actually be interested at now with the better understanding. So one thing that I think that adolescents happen to misunderstand is it's not even a misunderstand. I'd say they're missing exposure on actually how to and what do you guys do, and it's like what you were saying, Katie. It's more hands on. I think it's very important. So we'll play a good role.
Sometimes wonder how much people have like the assembly line picture in their head from like Ford days, where it's just bone grinding work that, is it's not satisfying. It's not, and it's nothing like that. So I'm just wondering how much that image may be holding over in everyone's head too.
I feel like that image is mostly given way to the image of automation, the robot arm conducting the on the floor manufacturing jobs that people used to do. The admittedly grimy and hard jobs, but still worthwhile. It's nice to look at something that you've made and feel pride in that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, John, can I just follow up on that? Sure. Just for everybody. So, we've all heard this is great feedback. What are some responses that you would have to say to address these misperceptions?
Well, I had an interesting conversation with we just recently had the Mass Bioed Workforce Life Sciences Workforce Conference in Boston, and there's always an educator industry sort of meeting at the end of the day. And we meet with the same companies every year. And so we've sat with Beam Therapeutics this year and Takeda, and obviously they have biomanufacturing in both facilities. And I'm curious what you all as students get told, because forever and a day, even in the biology world, you're always told, you know, the more you move up the chain, the more you're gonna be out of the actual hands-on everyday, you know, operations. And almost that's like a badge of honor. I don't know if that's true in engineering as well, but it seems like the farther you are removed from the shop floor, it's like you're moving up, right, which is not actually the case. And so we spoke with one of the, I voiced that concern from the educator perspective and said, is that really true? And they all looked at one guy who'd been there forever, and they all kind of like laughed, and I said, am I missing out on something? And he goes, best decision I ever made was to move from basic R&D back to biomanufacturing. He's a supervisor at one of those companies on the manufacturing floor. And he goes, I love to come to work every day. And I'm like, you're not just saying this because I'm sitting here asking you. He's like, nope, that was the best decision I ever made. It was the first time I heard that was someone's like the top of their careers, that they're diving back into biomanufacturing. So I think there's still a lot of misperceptions out there, I would still say.
Yeah, and you know, from my perspective, I think that exposure piece is really important. You know, a lot of students just have no idea what's out there within the workforce. You know, other than the traditional paths that, you know, that students take. You know, when, you know, even I think one of the problems that we have in a traditional high school is that, you know, we're not like a vocational school where, you know, they do have that exposure. They do have some on the job training where they are going into, you know, businesses and manufacturing centers and automotive centers and all of that in order to really gain an understanding of what's out there. And so I think, you know, we have a much harder time in exposing our students because we don't have that type of an academic setting.
We've given plenty of tours to comprehensive high school students. We tour students all year long, and one of the most impactful tours, 140 fourth graders from Brockton went to our facility. It's every Wednesday.
That's terrifying.
Well, I was terrified when I was first approached. It was true. I was actually at a restaurant talking to a bartender who was a teacher. And we got talking. She goes, would you tour fourth graders? I'm like, I guess. So we talked to our team. I tell you what, it was one of the most impactful. Think about fourth graders, how impressionable they are.
Yeah.
The letters, all the cards we got, all the kids wrote, thank you know, I want to be an engineer, I want to work at actor, colored, whatever. Now they get a mental picture and they get rid of the paradigm. They just point to it. And that's why we open our doors as much as we can. The first manufacturing that we did, we have 280 kids go to our factory in one day, which was way too long. So we've kind of spread that tour thing out. And I always try to meet with the students afterwards and say, the biggest misnomer our country is sent to our youth is that if you don't go to college, you're a failure. There's many successful pathways to a career, to a successful career, but college is one of them. But a company like Acton, like Marks and Arson, further your education, credentials, certifications, associate degrees, ultimately an engineering degree, whatever. So that's the message that needs to be sent. It's perception. And I've been involved in this work for over 30 years, and it's changed some. Manufacturing kind of hot. It's getting more attention. This is a great example of it. The tech I'm getting, grant hopefully prop things up, but the whole image and perception is really where it needs to start. And we do teacher externships. We have a college intern now. He's on a machine. He did some work, on the floor, but he asked, and we try to make sure any mechanical engineering student that's in college that interns here goes on the floor. Work with their hands to understand what it is to turn handles and work with a CNC machine. Because they're going to design something, you have a concept of what it's really like to the people that you're going to deliver on to.
And to amplify on that, I mean, we do that as well, but actually our skilled machinists and our skilled welders and fabricators actually can make more money than our skilled engineers. And we recently promoted, at his request, one of our fab shop guys left the company. We did an internal search first, and one of my mechanical engineers said, I want to do that. And it's like, wow, I never thought about that. So number one, he's just killing it. He's just doing a great job there. Number two, he's making a ton more money. And he gets to work in blues. He doesn't have to, use a slide rule or calculator or computer. He's out there turning wrenches with the team. And he's having a great time. So there's nothing, and I'm dying to get back out and turn some wrenches with them.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I think that brings us nicely into our next point here. This is directed a little bit more at the educators here at the table. What manufacturing related skills and programs are students in your respective schools actually getting today? Both at Avon schools, at Massasoit, and then, anywhere else that you may encounter your students. Has that changed in the recent history? And what would you like to see implemented in order to actually help even more? We're all looking at
Sure. No. I think it has changed over time. I think what the trend in education really has evolved, I would say, over the past 10 years or so, in terms, particularly at a high school level, where our accreditation body, which is the New England Association of Schools and Colleges, have really pushed schools and done a lot of research on what are businesses looking for in students. What skills are they looking for them to have once they leave either high school or college? And so they've really pushed, at least at a high school level, for us to develop a vision of a graduate, a portrait of a graduate. And their research had shown that a lot of the skills that a lot of businesses were looking for were those soft skills that weren't really taught anywhere. And so, when we were developing a vision of a graduate for Avon, we had a group of educators come together and say, what are those soft skills that students need? And our vision of a graduate includes problem solving, it includes responsibility, it includes collaboration, because without them, you can't do anything else. And so I think that there really is, more of a shift for, looking at kind of skill development at a high school level that isn't necessarily, that hands-on skill, but are those soft skills. And I think in Massachusetts, what we're finding now with kind of new graduation requirements, one of them is going to be a capstone project. And so that is going to evolve by 2030, that every high school graduate is going to have to do a capstone project, which then I think the goal of that is going to be to really try to incorporate some of that hands-on learning into it. So I think there has been a change, over time. I think, again, the biggest challenge is for students to understand the connection on those soft skills and how that works in a business environment. As well as, I keep coming back to that exposure piece, and just understanding and being able to make a connection of, wow, I have these really great problem solving skills. Maybe a career in manufacturing could kind of address that and could kind of, work to my, what I do well. And so, yeah.
Absolutely. We're just sorry. I don't mean to cut you off. We're definitely hearing that a lot. Now, this is only our second of 6 potential roundtables that we're doing.
Yeah.
We've heard that quite a bit. Is that soft skills? A lot of the people coming in definitely have some of those harder skills, maybe in the interest, since they're already there. But the soft skills definitely need some development, and that is often a cause of attrition in many of these jobs too. So, yeah, no, it's
Can you drill down on that? You said it's a cause of attrition.
Just in that people necessarily don't fit into the workplace, and maybe can't hack it, and they just are not a good fit, so they end up being let go or letting themselves go even, you know. So yes, that's what we've been hearing a lot, is that the soft skills are pivotal into actually keeping someone on board. Getting them in the door is one thing, but keeping them on board, the soft skills are pivotal.
Can we, just following up on that, because that was gonna be our next question. But- No, but you mentioned about teaching the soft skills or people skills or human skills, because I know we've heard that, brought that up, Mike, at the last meeting. Before we get to Massasoit and John's question, but with the soft skills, what is being done in public school and community colleges, or what do you think should be done that's not being done?
So as with anything, I think that it has evolved over time. So at the, I can go down to an elementary level and know that now we have social emotional curriculums in all, in our elementary school. And, that teach conflict resolution, that teach responsibility, that teach. And so I think we are doing an okay job of really trying to teach those skills. I think it becomes a little bit harder at the high school level, honestly, just because, they're older, and it really is trying to make those connections in their day-to-day work. So, educators are very adverse to be, a curriculum that is going to teach how to solve a problem, how to, but rather they are much more willing to identify to a student that, wow, you did this, and this is what this really means. It means that you're a good problem solver. It means, so it really is kind of raising awareness for students. And, I think again, offering community service opportunities to students is another way of, we have a community service requirement as part of what our graduation requirement. That's another way that we teach those soft skills, is really, trying to get students to collaborate, to problem solve, to show responsibility. So it's not as overt as a curriculum at the elementary level, but it's more experiential at the high school level.
Paul, can I jump in real quick?
Please.
So I will say, we recently released a survey to over 100 manufacturers, excuse me. And one of the questions was about soft skills, and 88% of the respondents said communication is the most valued. Which says people are having trouble communicating, which is tough, but I just wanted to throw that in there because it was in the moment. But they also said critical thinking, self-motivation, and attention to detail. 82% of all the employers responded to those as well. So
Yeah,
highlights it. You say we have attitude over talent all day long.
right.
It's a talent, right? Everybody that gets interviewed for a job, I'm usually the last person to kind of have a conversation, and it's all about our core values, guiding principles, which are behaviors. And if they assimilate to that, then they'll be successful here. And it might not be for everybody, that's fine. But if you want to work in acronyms, you gotta express gratitude, you gotta strive for excellence, you gotta have trust, you gotta have initiative, you gotta put the team first. And those are musts. And, people can say it, you can fake it, but you're not, if you get here, the first 2 or 3 months, you'll show your true colors. We've had instances where we had to let people go because of behaviors. Because we just can't top it. If you do, it brings everybody else down. The people that are doing the right thing and thinking critically, problem solving, and showing up every day. Attendance, simple thing, right? But showing up on time, showing up every day. Listen, we talk about physical safety, and that's first and foremost. We talk about mental health. That's ever more important. So you gotta address those, you gotta be open to that. But again, you can't be taken advantage of.
I would say, I would John do the technical speak, but I think as far as the soft, and I cringe now, and I think I've been on so many panels that it's not even soft. I heard someone from industry the other day said, stop calling them soft, they're essential. And I go, oh, that's
Right. Yeah.
actually
Absolutely.
really great. And it made me think about it, but to your point, John, like in the last probably 20 grant proposals we've submitted, everyone knows, that's a narrative and background work. And there is definitely not a paucity of STEM graduates. In fact, I think 85% of the 2024 graduating class was a STEM major, but it is that they don't have those necessary skills. And it's funny because I was a little bit late coming here because Massasoit and Brockton's getting a new science building and we're moving all the stuff over. And I'm very fortunate to have the school support of an undergraduate research program that's akin to what most four-year schools have. And that includes, it's centered around native pollinator research, but it involves every facet of STEM, including a lot of engineering. So we can have the project design on campus. But I'm not gonna lie to your point, like that we have a whole building team, we have architects, we have people sealing off the building and the interns. I caught two of them messing around in the lab and popping bubble wrap and I wasn't too pleased.
Too harshly on that.
All I heard coming down the hall was giggling. And I saw everyone and those are all good learning experiences. And I say that as someone who had that done to me. I like to be goofy and I remember working for my PI in college and she came in and she was like, am I paying you to goof off or am I paying you to do, so to that point, I think part of it, a huge part of it, at least at Massasoit, is that we're able to give them sort of call it like job simulation training. They get paid through our internship program and they also get put on leave if they're not doing what they need to do. And I also think that project-based learning is something that we have to focus on more and more, because if you can't identify the why you're doing something, your motivation in it and your desire to expand is kind of not, at least for me, is not there. And I really rely heavily on John and his ideas, and he can tell you our curriculum has a lot of these core skills embedded. And thank you to AccuRounds hugely, as we just submitted, hopefully we hear in a week or two, an FY 27 Skills Capital grant to have a digital fabrication lab at our Canton campus where our engineering programs lie, to allow the students to have more of that hands-on training.
Yeah, so I guess first of all, strictly for manufacturing, what do we offer? What do we teach? I don't know, it's embarrassing to say this, but it's zero. How has it changed over the last 10 years? It's gotten worse. When I started at Massasoit, we had a electronics technician program. That was sunsetted after we switched the engineering programs to engineering transfer. So students go on for 4 year full engineering degree rather than just get an associate and enter the workforce. With that said, we're looking into how we can bring this back, bring back the electrician programs. And with all of these, there's always these questions. And when I started teaching, I actually started teaching at ITT. And most of you probably know ITT was shut down 10 years ago. Their electronics program was actually quite good. The IT was, and some of the others were really, really awful. However, ITT was graduating 40,000 students a year. They shut down in a day. So I think it was September 2016. And the industry didn't notice. We didn't see extra students come in. I actually started at Massasoit prior to leaving ITT. We didn't see extra students come in. We didn't see employers looking for these students. So that sort of brings up the question of what was actually done, and I don't have the answer to that. So moving on for what we do have, because we are an engineering transfer program, in some ways we're pretty strict on what we can actually offer. Because we have to offer basically the full coursework that a student would get if he went to, wherever, UMass Amherst and engineering program, Northeastern, whatever. Which sort of leaves only our intro to engineering class, a single 4-credit class where we can add things and move things and advance things. And we've been working on that. We've been adding in more hands-on labs as time has gone on, and we hope to improve on that. One of the things I teach to all my students is to look at things, understand, notice problems, and even if there isn't a problem, ask yourself why. And as I was thinking about what I was going to say in this room, around, why is that door over there? And the answer is obvious. It's over there because you don't want the door right next to the entrance. Like to have it a little farther away. That's a real simple example. There are lots of examples on things like that where you can think of something. One of the things all of these students heard. When I was at ITT, we got a new water cooler, and it was automatic, so that it didn't just have the switch, the knob that you flipped up to dispense water. It had a solenoid that opened and closed. The solenoid was something like 18 inches away from the end of the spout. First time you filled your glass, when you took your finger off the button, or filled your glass, when you took your finger off the button, you overfilled it unless you left an inch of space at the top. Horrible engineering design. They must have realized that, after they did committed to build 10,000 of them. Those are the things that I try to teach my students, to get them to look around, see what is different. If it's different, is it wrong? What could have been done?
I just wanted to piggyback off of what you two had mentioned. You mentioned soft skills, you mentioned the why, right? And so what I've remembered when I was in high school was that I would commonly hear my peers always state, why am I learning this? But I don't remember not a single adult ever answering why I actually had to learn it. So that's where that lack of connection came from, and there was no interest to actually want to obtain what we're learning. And from there, that's where we had no interest for the soft skills of it's not actually not even interest. I would say maybe the people around us haven't been exempling those proper soft skills within like proper communication or just simple consideration of, hey, I'm not going to be able to make it into work today, because that's something I've experienced a lot, to where I had to pick up after my coworkers because they don't know how to simply communicate, or they feel higher than others, and it's like not everything is about just you. I don't know how to say it, but that is something that I've seen within the people around me near my age. So I see where you guys are coming from.
So if I could just direct a recommendation, there's a great, do you know what a TED Talk is? Seen the video?
Yes.
There's a great TED Talk by a guy named Simon Sinek, and it's start with the why. He talks exactly about what you're saying. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it.
Yes.
God, I haven't heard that in years, and I'm still quoting it.
That's good.
But that's an important thing.
Yeah. I certainly agree. I think being in the engineering industry for a little bit and being a student learning it now, you definitely see where the disconnect is. I think a lot of students forget that. Well, I first want to acknowledge that engineering is a very hard degree, right? You're doing a lot of math, a lot of very advanced, a lot of very difficult math. So I think the kind of students that gravitate towards that are very, very intellectual, but lack a lot of social skills to be able to acclimate very well to the work environment. And I've seen that firsthand where I'm working at like a big pharmaceutical company doing some testing for their fuel hit system or something like that. And I'm talking to a lead scientist about what they do, and they lack the social awareness to understand that I'm directly in front of them. And that, they don't have to speak down to me, or, they don't have to be very abrasive in the way that they're approaching me, because, much like they're doing their job, I'm doing mine. And, like even when I'm somewhere very, my old like manager used to be like, like be on your best behavior basically. And I'm like, yes, while I agree, you forget that this is a person. Like he might be the CEO of a company, but he's a person, and he might like to talk a little bit while we're doing whatever we're doing. So you have to be a person, you have to be personable in order to maintain what you're doing. Like I think the focusing on the curriculum is important, but applying them to real life is very, very different. It is extremely different in the classroom solving a problem and then relaying that to 10 other employees or subordinates that you have to fix the problem. Like speaking about it in theory is just not the same as the real applications. And as far as the skills students should have, I think a lot of students don't, again, don't know what the field is, like, don't know what they're doing. Explaining to the interns that we've hired at my old company or something like that, that, you know, most of the work we do is computer based. Like most of the models that we're doing, we're collecting real life data for sure, but we're inputting into something. So they're asking me, so I'm in school for this. Why do I have to take these classes? Why am I taking Cal 3? Why am I taking differential equations? I'm like, while it does seem frustrating, right? Because you're not going to calculate those numbers by yourself. The system, a program is certainly going to do it for you. It's very important to understand where a system could go wrong. It's very important to understand how the problem should work, what a reasonable answer should be. So if you get something that seems far off, you can challenge that and bring it up to be like, oh, something's going on. I'm missing something, rather than blindly believing what's happening. I think at my story, I was able to take a SolidWorks class. And had I not taken that class, I would not have known how important SolidWorks is to manufacturing. And having taken that class, and actually John was one of my teachers, but having him and Gene push me to like continue to take those classes, I was able to like build a portfolio and talk to companies and continue to grow skill wise. And a lot of kids are turned off from how expensive software can be. SolidWorks is completely free for students, much like a lot of the other 3D and 2D rendering tools. A lot of those modeling softwares are 100% at zero cost, no matter the education level, from middle school, high school, and college. You can run those for free. You can, there's tests that the websites offer so you can practice your skills. And I don't think kids know that these are tools that are accessible to them.
All right, I do want to be cognizant of the clock. We are scheduled for an hour, so we might run a little bit over, but we have a couple more questions real quick. This is more to the students. Where are you guys actually getting your information about potential careers from? And, you know, how do you recommend that those in the industry reach out to students or, you know, actually connect and make those connections with students so that they are inspired to move into those jobs?
I want to say the best way to choose job fairs. I feel like when companies came to the schools and had conversations one-on-one with whatever they had going on, manufacturing or automotive or any of those things of that nature, because at a vocational school, like they do see it a lot, but when you go into a public or charter school, you may not see it. So those job fairs definitely help with it.
If there's one thing I could add to that, it's that job fairs do tend to be more localized affairs where local companies go to hire new potential workers. But considering a lot of us are here for engineering and it has to be a bachelor's degree with 2 years at another institution, it'd be great to have maybe an online listing so that people can find out where they might be able to find new jobs, new internship opportunities that might inform where they choose to take the latter half of their degree. For instance, I am a bit torn about where I want to finish my chemical engineering degree because I don't know where I would be able to get work experience while I'm there, which I believe is incredibly important before I graduate.
I agree. I think it's pretty evident that social media is a very powerful tool. It's a very powerful thing to have in your wheel belt. It's surprising how sometimes disconnected companies are from possible future employees or students who are interested. A lot of my friends who just recently graduated are going into cybersecurity or like just very niche careers where you don't have much representation. The way they're able to see where to apply or how to go is they're hopping on TikTok or they're hopping on LinkedIn, and there is a person who was in their shoes not even 5 years ago who's literally recording their day as a cybersecurity analyst, as a machinist, or as a engineer who's like, this is what I do on a day-to-day. This is a project. I can't show you the project, but it's like these are the problems we're working on trying to solve, where, you know, you have people who their whole online personality is transferring students from classrooms to internships to careers, and then they have Google Docs where it's like, these are things I did. These are things that might apply to you if you're in this area, if these are your focuses. And I think as a company, you know, that is a very easy way to bridge a gap by having some kind of online presence where kids can look up in their area what jobs are available when they're seeing your company. I didn't even know this was here. And I've lived in the area the last 6 years. So I think that just having like that kind of outreach limits a lot of like physical like effort you have to place into, you know, going to a career fair, because now you have that online presence and kids can see for themselves, and now they're interested in your history. You as CEO can talk about, this is what we do here, and now you have a bunch of applicants looking for something here because they really align with your mission. They really align with what you're doing. I think that's important.
You're saying there's workforce development TikTokers.
Future is
I
now.
like it. That's fascinating. Thank you.
You weren't with me, but Jacques was. We went to with Megan, and it was, well, this time last year, we went to an engineering conference, and actually there was an entire session on TikTok. And I'm like, I think I'm pretty social media savvy, but they were like, what's your TikTok? Like non-existent. Like, that's a huge industry now.
Yes, it
Yeah.
There's a platform called Career Sprint. Actually happened to be the Boston New England Advisory Council board. It's for first gen and or low income students. College now moving into high school. Actually they're looking at vocational. It's kind of the next phase, but it's, you join as a student, and I'm not sure if that's sort of part of their, sign on, if the schools can sign on, it's a free resource. You jump on there, and if you're interested in engineering, you can network with anybody there's thousands of advisors online. And they will set up a 30-minute call. I've had several calls. What's it called? Career Sprint. You can sign up as an advisor. You just sign up and you're kind of, what you specialize in is on there. You could come up with a search, advisees and students, connect with advisors, and you just learn and network. It was started by an individual named Chris Ray in Houston in 2019. We launched in Boston about 5 years ago. I've been on the board ever since. And he saw the lack of ability for these smart students to get into the jobs. They didn't have the network that people were born here. I'm actually first gen, but you know, my father was an immigrant from Italy. He came here when he was 17 and ultimately founded the company. But to give that opportunity to students that don't have that, it's been great. It's been a very rewarding experience. We continue to grow the network and grow the advisees as well as advisors and schools. And we get some funding from some larger companies in the Boston area. So it's worth checking out. Certainly Massachusetts should be a partner. And I can connect you with our regional director, but that's a good resource.
I feel like LinkedIn is very beneficial too. Because
LinkedIn's very powerful.
If there, you can also like track someone's like progress, whatever they started at, what college they went to, and then whatever job, they will show you like what job they have found from being in the same shoes as you for whatever you have went through.
For inspiration or a template, even, you know, like I want to be this, what the steps that I need to do.
I will keep you posted too, because 10-20 years ago, there was an adjunct professor with me at Bristol when we were teaching, and he's founded, I don't know if any of you have heard of Steam the Streets. They started in New Bedford, now they're in LA. And so Corinne Savignon is our VP of the Future of Work Institute at Massachusetts. She's amazing. And somehow they both contacted me, so they're meeting in like 3 weeks, and I think both of them are powerhouses, so I will loop in you all, because I think they might do sort of a multimedia campaign. And he has the audience, and he founded a videography company, so I'll pass that info on once I get it.
Actually, I just got a call a week from today, 5 to 8 at Trillium. Sure, as well.
Oh, yeah.
Manufacturing Happy Hour, which is this guy, Chris Lukey, who goes around the country starting his London tour. I'm gonna be in a panel. It's from 5 to 8. It's gonna be networking and promoting manufacturing in Mass. And that's what we need more.
Yeah.
I'm looking for that word. It's the promotion piece. Right. We need to create a movement And it's gonna be more visible to increase the awareness from students, to teachers, to parents, to educators, and across the board.
And I feel like most people find it like difficult for like where they're supposed to like start because like you go online, you like search up like for like let's say like engineering jobs in my area, and you click on the website, you look like for like something that you could do, and when you find it, you usually like look through all the information about it, and then you find out like the job like requires like let's say like 2 years of prior experience, and like it just like gets confusing because like you're not sure like where you're like supposed to start from to like gain that experience that you need.
It's that transitional phase is where we have a hard time transitioning through. So it's, I agree with that.
Grab it by its neck and say, I may not have those 2 years experience, but I am gonna work my butt off to help you accomplish your goals. And I bet you they'll give you an interview.
I'll let you know. I'll keep you updated.
I definitely second that thought. I like recently transitioned out of my consulting job to try to focus full time on like getting a position in engineering. And it's really interesting applying to these places where they're asking recent graduates for those 2 to 3 years experience. And it's kind of confusing to me, like, where would I have found this? Like, at what point would I have gotten those 2 to 3 years? And it's very interesting because I have 6 years of experience in engineering, and not a lot of students have that. And even me I have a bunch of certificates and accreditations thankfully, like through the job I had, I'm OSHA certified, like I have my HAZWOPER 40, and a lot of kids don't know that those are things that they should get. And even then, it's hard to get past an AI screening where you're not even sending it to a person anymore, and then you're getting rejected. And I'm pretty sure Workday is going to get a class action lawsuit very soon. But it's kind of crazy that they keep a profile on one submission. Doesn't matter how much experience you have since then. If you revise your resume and you submit it again, your profile is the initial that was not preferable, and that's the profile you have for the rest of your time applying through that software. And that's just, I don't know. I think it feels like kicking someone when they're down, because if I'm trying to get the experience, I would really appreciate, I don't know, companies having these intro positions where maybe the pay is not as good, but you have a foot in the door. And I'm able to be measured off of my skill and what I bring to the table rather than who I know and how much I've done as a student if I'm supposed to be a full-time student. I do think that, what's the other portion? Man, I'm drawing a blank, but I that was important for me because I like recently heard back from Raytheon and they were like, no. And I had to call one of my buddies who's a hiring manager. He was like, I didn't even know you applied. I'll look up your resume, and having a discussion with the board about like, oh, you are a good fit. So we like that's so frustrating to see that.
That kind of gets back to your networking. That's what I was gonna say. It's unfortunate, but you need to have those connections because you're right, and it's only getting worse with AIs.
Yeah, that's so true. And present company accepted, because you guys know an awful lot about your careers and, you've been working in engineering. I would say more than half of our students walk into class the first day and they don't know what an engineer does. I want to be an electrical engineer. I have no idea what an engineer can
I
do.
remember the intro to engineering harrowing of the first exam.
Yeah, so that's, one thing that's just the whole start that we have to, teach them what the possibilities are. Unfortunately, we don't really focus on manufacturing very much. Another thing somewhat related to that, back, I want to say it was about 7 or 8 years ago, Stonehill College got a big workforce grant to develop an optical manufacturing program. Yeah, and I helped them out. I actually got a call to come and attend because they looked me up in Carmen. I'm an optical manufacturing company. They didn't know that when they saw. But in speaking of the chemistry professor who was starting it, I said to her, do you realize that south of 128, and again, exclude this company, but there are no large manufacturers. There are no large engineering companies, not a single one. The only one, GE used to exist in Taunton, they still exist, but it's sort of a shadow of what it used to be 20 or 30 years ago. And I actually made a list. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head if you guys were on it. You probably were, because I definitely knew about this company forever. But compared to like Metro West, you looked at Plymouth, Bristol County, it was a factor of 5 to 10 less the number of engineering jobs. And I think that makes it hard being in this area because students don't see those possibilities. And, everyone's first thought is, I think you mentioned this, I want to find a job local to my home.
Or even just local to any place that'll accept mass transfer.
Yeah. So that I think is an issue relative to the South Shore. How does the state work? And this was part of that goal of that optical manufacturing program. To my knowledge, I hadn't seen a single company open because that was ultimately the goal, that you start get the high tech employment, and then you get the companies come down. So that's just another issue that I think it makes a little more difficult.
Yeah.
And I suppose as long as we're willing to move to get to the job, they
Right.
don't have a reason to move to us.
Right. Well, that's actually a transition to the next week. We have 2 more questions. But that's a great transition because we're talking mostly about workforce development. But Rick here is the town planner of this town. And Rick, this is your town. What does economic development, particularly manufacturing, mean to you all here in Avon?
Well, manufacturing is what's called a basic industry where you're selling to customers outside the region and then you're bringing money into the region. So there's certain fields of endeavor that are basic industries like manufacturing, agriculture is another one, and research hospitals like Mass General Hospital, they sell to customers outside the region and they bring resources into the region. So they're particularly valuable because the basic industries then feed what are called non-basic industries like restaurants, convenience stores, building maintenance, and any retail. So, and those non-basic industries simply circulate money within the local economy, whereas the basic industries of manufacturing, agriculture, et cetera, bring money into the region. So it's quite important in terms of the economic viability of the region and the town's finances in particular. So.
Just one last question. If we could do one thing in the next year, what should that be? And Jason, I'm going to start with you because you haven't spoken a whole lot, and I know I've talked to you about this. So get the conversation going.
Well, I think Mike said it 1,000 times, Dan Evans, Paul Diamond, it's perception and awareness. And I don't know how to fix that. I know we've talked about it a bunch of times. I mean, I think, when do we start with awareness, whether that's 4th grade? Is it middle school, I've heard, is it high school? And then what can we create in terms of you guys that are on the younger side? What would kickstart your brain to say, oh, manufacturing is a viable outlet or a viable employment opportunity? And Mike's opened his doors hundreds and hundreds of times. What's the next thing we can do? Is that, I'm not a social media guy, is it TikTok? Or is there a new one that I'm not aware of? Where do we start at?
I suppose we're going to all have to learn how to dance well for the TikToks.
Strike 1 and 2, can't, don't use TikTok.
I'm curious, is there an industry-led consortium of manufacturers that bankroll their own sort of industry, public relations type stuff, getting the word out there about your industry, putting a good face on the industry, so to speak. I know there's a lot of maybe state-led efforts to maybe do that.
That's really coming out of the Center for Advanced Manufacturing. There are 2 trade associations we're members of, and there's 2 NTMA, the National Tooling and Machining Association, has 2 chapters. Mark hosted a recent BTMA meeting, there's a Boston chapter and a Western Mass chapter. But they're more, you know, they do try to do outreach, but it's more industry focused activity, right? PMPA is a New England region, chapter. If you want something very specific, the billboard on Route 24, I mean, maybe come up with something that's splashy enough that attracts an eye around advanced manufacturing. You know, have you ever thought about a career in advanced manufacturing? Do something that's relatable to the general public. Because anybody that comes into our facilities, their eyes wide open.
I was gonna say.
Oh my God, that's
Mouth
you
agape.
know, this exists. Well, you wouldn't be able to get in your car, you wouldn't be able to use your phone, you wouldn't be able to turn on your computer, you wouldn't be able to go on a plane. The door companies like us, so you wouldn't be able to live your life like you do. People don't, it's making that connection.
I think you have something very, two basic things from a non-engineer. One is, I felt that way when I embarked on my postdoc. I thought I was going to like play with the animals, and then they showed me a machine that looked like one on the floor, and I had a full-blown panic attack. And I remember I said to my boss, "Nah, this was the worst thing I could have said." I said, "I'm not an air traffic controller." Like, I don't know why that came out of my mouth. And the person was like, "Yeah, I know, clearly you're not." And I said, "Well, why am I like, you know, when you're in a complete meltdown, I'm like, I can't operate this machine." He's like, "You've been here 2 hours. Like, can I just show you how to operate this?" And I never felt more empowered after I learned. I filled like notebooks on how to use it, but that was a huge step in my career, and I wouldn't have known it. So one is, I remember like 3 or 4 years ago, Megan Abella Bowen had offered, it was a women in welding, like free course, and I couldn't go because I was teaching on those nights. But honestly, something as basic as like introducing the field and like dispelling the myths, because I look at that and I'm like, never in a million years could I operate one of those machines. And I know that's not the case, but that's how I feel. And also, I don't know how the folks in the industry feel, but just something showing your quality of life and your salary and like what you do and don't have to take home at the end of the day. I think that's huge, because I don't think a lot of people know.
Well,
And-
to the students here, I recommend, rather to amplify what you're
Mhm.
saying, take a walk through the drive to the parking lot.
I was gonna say, I said that 35, when we started tours for high school kids, we started them in the parking lot.
I did too. I think I learned that
Look
from
at the
you.
cars.
I need to go move my car then.
That's what I said, the CEO of the company has the worst car in the lot. And we just hired our first female welder, and we pulled her out of, she just graduated from Votech, and we're so excited to have her. It's such a really empowering thing. And it's hard because, right, it's bricks, metal, steel, engineering, it's, you know, male dominated fields, and getting the diversity throughout that is difficult, challenging, and important to do.
I think it is a combination of that awareness and that experiential piece. You know, I don't think I think they have to go hand in hand. You know, to kind of dispel the misperceptions, but also give students an opportunity. And I'm not saying a long-term opportunity. I'm not saying internships or anything like that. You know, just some, and I don't know what that something is. But something that is a little bit more than a tour. And has that experiential piece to it, so that.
Man, I got a machine you can run right
Yeah. Just because I think, you know, for most students, that's the impact.
Right.
You know, that experiential piece is the impact that they, is going to change their perceptions.
I'm gonna date myself, but do you remember junior achievement?
Yes.
That was the greatest, I'm dead serious. We got to put together a pen from start to finish. And I don't wanna say how old I am, but I remember that every day of my life. Like, that was that impactful, because we were going as fast as we could, but we needed the precision and we needed it to be replicated, you know what I mean? So something like that in advanced manufacturing would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
I think my response is a little selfish just because I'm a student, but I do think that an internship / co-op opportunity would be very, very impactful, especially within the first couple semesters that you're at school. I think for Massasoit especially, like if there's local partners, local manufacturers, a place like this where you have the opportunity to bridge between what you're actually gonna do and what is expected of you. It would help one, weed out students immediately from who thinks they want to do this and who actually wants to do this, as opposed to waiting till your junior or sophomore year of school. You've already done the hardest math classes of your life, and now you're finding out I have no passion for this because I finally am able to get that opportunity to see what we do, and I don't want to do it. And you know, I don't know the logistics of like co-ops or anything like that, but I don't even think it has to be like a paid opportunity for most of the students. I think just able, no, I know. Having the experience, one, is something you can put in your resume. Two, maybe having it be some kind of work study program through the campus where you're able to get an elective class cut off already and you have work experience. I think that's killing two birds with one stone. Because I don't know one student who would look at, one, I don't have to do some class I don't really want to do. Two, I know exactly what I'm doing in my career and wouldn't look at that like, I like this. I think that might be a great if and maybe.
It's just to piggyback that too. I think in some ways it needs to be a tiered approach.
Mm.
You know, where at a college level, you're talking more about that kind of real intense kind of co-op or internship. It doesn't have to be that with high school kids or middle school kids. But I do, you know, again, I think that needs to be both, that misperception kind of, you know, really dispelling that along with some kind of experience.
Yeah, and a couple things related to that, and throw this out there. At Massasoit, our students generally don't have class on Fridays. So they're free, they're available, if you like them. Second thing is, we do get requests from manufacturers for students to employ. In fact, we had, two students that were hired by, I believe it may have been Plymouth Grading, but I know it's an optics or, light-based company out in Plymouth, just this past semester. Also, what am I trying to talk about here? So related to that, you can send us opportunities. We send them all out to the students. You'll get some resumes. You may find, you know, do you like to meet with students? Yeah, again, the opportunities, you know, from my point of view, if you took a student for a day, they'd be happy because they learned something that they don't know. You know, as we talked about, nobody knows what goes on behind those doors. Nobody. And you know, you go into a tour and you see the machines and you just see little parts coming out at the end, but that doesn't really give any kind of impression for what the job involves.
I hate to break up a wonderful party, but I am way overdue. Nice, great. I thank you for hosting this.
Oh, yeah.
You're welcome. Paul, thank you for putting it together. Please keep me on the distribution. I've got a.
Thank you. No, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you, take care.
Just want to be respectful of everyone's time, but does anyone have anything that they've been dying to say that hasn't come up that you'd like to say?
Hold on.
I guess I could add, I would emphasize on what was said about the advertisement. I'd say digital advertisement is it'll be very impactful regionally highs. The billboard does sound like a good idea, but I feel like there's still a lot of like adolescents driving as they're on the phone at the same time. So are they really looking up there? They're really looking on the road. So with that, I would also like to add the fact of the internship, right? You mentioned internship. I know you're pushing for not paid, which is, I think the internship overall is good to offer, but I think paid would also be a good aspect to add on because thinking of it, right? We're also trying to balance school along with work and a simple life to maintain. So I think that's also a good thing to add. But I would say that's what we should start with.
Further, just one last piece. I don't know what Massasoit has in terms of like lab setting programming, stuff like that, but I know we have the class for SolidWorks and there's the 3D printing that comes with that and some of the materials that you have on campus. I know colleges like Bridgewater are doing stuff for their harder programs where they have student-led labs where the students are in a teaching setting, which counts as real life work experience, and they are getting paid because it's like a internship kind of deal. where high school students and middle school students are coming in to learn from college students. So it's like it's a system, it's an ecosystem where, you know, your middle school classes are being taught, your college students are getting work experience, and they're learning actively because it's led by a professor who's there for support, but it's really mostly student led. And I think that is a possibility, maybe.
The good news is our new Associate Dean of STEM, Matt Waterman, he's just finishing his first year and he's phenomenal. And if you're familiar with the Perkins grant, it supports workforce education, kind of exactly what we're talking about here. And I'll just keep it brief, is that I don't think it's been stewarded the way that it should be at the state level for several years. And Matt is our champion of Perkins and is doing exactly what you just proposed, putting funding in to put engineering students back in the classroom as supplemental instructors. So fingers crossed that will be happening. Thank you, because that's huge.
Okay, well, we want to thank you all. This has been great. You can see we've taken a lot of notes, John and I. This is being transcribed too, but again, our commitment to you is this stuff's going to make its way into the plan. And this is important information. So this isn't just idle talk here. These are steps that we're going to take action on. It'll make it in there, but I'm all about taking action. I don't know a plan that sits on the shelf and does nothing. So, but yeah, I can't thank you all enough for the time. And for any of these students, you might want to hold back a little bit because we can have some funding to help cover your travel getting here. So John and I can help you with that.
I actually have to go, I have a meeting at 1.
Oh.
I'll let you know.
Prism. Yeah.
You guys did a great job. Great job. It was nice meeting you.
Nice to see you in person. I feel like I say everyone else.
It was going to.
Thank you again for the invitation.
Thank you for participating.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Oh, you guys.
Nice to meet you guys.